Hello. Hi, Kathy Hofstetter. I'm your host. This is a new podcast and a new webinar, and it's a new way of doing some things and getting information out. This particular chapter version episode is from In the Tack Trunk, which covers products, equipment. It just covers all the things that we need desperately to keep these horses going and to keep the show running. So my guest today is Nick Collins. He has Pacific Saddlery, which was new at Thermal this year. And it's about tack repair and tack upkeep and taking care of your equipment. So, hi, Nick. How are you?
Hi, Kathy. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, it's going to be a lot of fun. I have some questions that I haven't let you know I have. But I need some insight. Give me just a little bit about your history and introduce yourself a little bit.
Well, we started Pacific Saddlery about a year ago. Previous to that, I think many people might know me from manufacturing equestrian clothing. We did equestrian clothing for about maybe 20 years or so. And we sort of fell into the tack repair through a good friend of mine asking me to do some repair for him. And we just fell into it. And now that's what we're doing.
Well, it was pretty fun. You guys were across from me on Vendor Road. That's just how Thermal Apex is the management there, the Desert Circuit weeks out there, weeks and weeks of it. And so you were across from me, and we had a lot of fun back and forth. And I noticed that in the beginning, it was people didn't really know what was going on. And then as the word got out and some information went out, all of a sudden you guys were flooded. You had so much activity and so much stuff. Did that support your fact that this is going to be a really good endeavor?
Yeah, I really do. I think it's going to be a great business. I think, like you said, when you first start there out at Thermal, we were in a new spot where people weren't used to seeing us, in a new trailer that people weren't used to seeing. So it took a bit of time for people to recognize who we were and what we were doing. But once that happened, we got a very warm reception. So that was nice.
Weren't you the master of making custom jackets and coats and show coats and that were absolutely beyond beautiful and very specific and fit extremely well? Was that
We made a lot of coats. I sort of miss those days. I miss those days of all the ladies in the hunter ring and beautiful window pane coats and stripes and all the beautiful coats that we used to do back then. But now we're doing tack.
Does all of that work that you did on that, my mother was a seamstress, and she would get down to a statement she would always say, and I remember it to this day with writing and everything else. Doesn't matter how good a product you have, how good a story you tell, it's all in the tidy work, she called it. The mundane, cleaning it up, making sure everything is right. The tidy work is the real key to all of this. What do you think about that?
No, I agree. Your mother was right. It's the attention to detail. And sort of years of sewing coats and making sure that collars set properly and lapels laid flat applies in the repair of the tack. It's whether or not the stitches are straight, whether or not you're matching the stitches per inch of the product that you started with and the repair that you're doing, making sure that the seats look proper. It's all kind of falls into that same area.
I would think so too. What's the hardest part of what you're doing with this new business and the tack repair and all that? What's the hardest thing?
Hardest thing? Probably just the logistics of it, getting the tack to and from the shows and keeping track of lots and lots of tack and customer pieces. And especially, you start to disassemble things, making sure that you've got enough boxes to keep everybody's items in. And that's probably the most difficult part.
I think your system, I saw it there at Thermal, where everything goes in a specific box for a specific owner, and it's dated and tagged, and then you guys have a little system in how all that works. I thought that was really well done instead of just tack everywhere. And I pray to God we get the right thing. I think that was a bit of trial and finding the best way of either tagging it or boxing it. I know you tag it also, but that's a good system to make sure the right stuff gets back. Major question that I've had people ask me, what about the very old tack that people bring in to be repaired? It might be cracked. It might just be dirty. It might be old. How successful is that in repairing older tack? Not fairly new stuff that's just broken or needs an adjustment. But the old stuff that we all have in our tack rooms that I watched you look at it and go, yeah, I can help that. I can fix that. And it would come out. I'm going, where'd that come from? How does that dynamic work?
The good thing is almost anything can be repaired. Occasionally we'll get something and I just have to look at the customer and say it might be time to retire this and buy a new piece. But for the most part, we can repair just about anything. I had a young lady bring me a really nice side saddle that she had inherited. It's a 23 it was built, and we're redoing that for her. And so you can do and repair just about anything.
And then I was actually stopped over by your trader when somebody brought you in a pair of draw reins that they had decided to fix themselves. And they cut off the wrong end and they looped it the wrong side. And so you had to go about fixing all that. How do you explain that to somebody? And what is your advice? Should everybody try and fix this stuff themselves? Or this is a loaded question.
Well, I think a lot of the repairs, if you're handy, you can certainly do them at home. In that particular case, yes, we had a customer that decided they wanted to shorten a set of reins, and they cut off the wrong end of the reins to make it very difficult to shorten them, as opposed to, sort of just bringing it by and saying, I need these to be, 6 inches shorter. So it's probably best, I think, ask the person that might be doing the work to help you with the decision on how to, start. But certainly, people can do a lot of things at home themselves as well.
Or at least ask somebody first before they start chopping into this tack.
Absolutely. Definitely worth asking.
I think one of the big questions that I've had from people and the years of experience is saddles. When you work on the seat and on the foam pads underneath in the panels, does that affect the saddle configuration in the way the seat still fits somebody or doesn't? And how do those foam panels help a horse when you readjust them?
It won't really change the configuration of the saddle at all, being that most of the modern saddles are all foam construction. They don't really have any wool flocking anymore. So you can't really adjust the fit without actually replacing that panel. And we can do that. You can get the panels from the manufacturers if you do want to change that. Or if you have a seat that's really worn and you want to replace that seat, when you replace it, it's not necessarily different, but it certainly has a lot of new life to it. And so it's nice that all of those things are available to us to actually be able to service the customer.
Can you adjust a knee roll? Can you make it wider, flatter, longer, taller, thicker?
Sure. There's all sorts of knee rolls available that we can purchase the shape, or we can also make them. And then we simply sort of, cover them and attach them to the saddle. And so that's certainly something that can be done.
Okay, good. That's very interesting. Okay, on tack care and taking care of it, what's your advice on what to use on tack, how to take care of it when you first get it? There used to be many years ago, we would get a bucket with soap and water and dip it and clean it and do all of that. And then we would strip the wax and stuff off of it. And then we would dip it in what was then Needs Foot oil. I'm not sure. I think they're still using Needs Foot oil.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a funny story, and I'll just make it short. I bought my first bridle from Sears and Roebuck for $19.95. $19.95. And I was a working student at Jimmy's at the time. And their tack was so beautiful. And so I heard what they were doing. You warm the Needs Foot up a little bit, you dip it. And so I warmed it up. And I warmed it up. And I warmed it up again. And I dipped the bridle and I hung it up, and it was so soft and so beautiful. So I hung it in the tack room to wait. Came the next morning and I had fried it. It was just, you just break it. So I know we don't do that anymore. What do you do now when you get this tack?
Your original approach was correct. The old way is the good way. Today, I think there's so many products that are sold that are sort of gimmicky and not necessarily a necessity in what we do. And I think, to go back to our previous conversation, asking questions is a good thing. When we talk about, heating up the oil, I had a customer bring us a bridle and ask what was wrong. And I talked to her about it, and she had oiled it and she forgot to heat the oil. So she took the bridle after oiling it and stuck it in the oven. And she made herself a potato chip. So I think, again, asking those questions and just doing it simply, just cleaning the bridle, keeping all of the dirt and grime off the stitching. It helps that stitching stay in place. The dirt doesn't rub against it like sandpaper, and we don't wear out our tack and our saddles as quickly as we do.
I know you guys are in the business of repair for sure, but do you mind if people stop and ask or shoot you a call and ask those questions? Is that available to?
Oh, absolutely. We get quite a bit of that now. Our website, actually, we do quite a bit of business around the country. And so we get a lot of mail-in business because people will call us and ask us maybe what is the best way to solve a problem that they're having, or how do we adjust the size of a boot, or things like that. And they'll contact us that way, and we can answer questions back and forth. And then usually they'll just send them off to us, and we'll get them repaired for them.
And is just plain old soap and water still a good way to clean off this stuff that ends up in the bottom of the trunks and lives there?
Soap and water is the best way. And a decent nylon brush will remove almost everything. And to clean the fittings, that's the one thing I see a lot of people forget to do, is to clean their fittings.
How do you, again, another question, the stirrup leathers, where the stirrup hangs and the stirrup leathers, that gets black and built up and kind of crummy. How do you do that specific little area that just wears and tears so much on a ride? How do you clean that?
Same way. The thing is just to keep it clean, just soap and water, and keep all that grit out of there. Now, don't get me wrong, it's going to discolor and it's going to smooth just from friction. That's going to happen. But the key thing is to keep all of that grit out of there that really starts to wear things down.
Okay, good. Do you have any advice for all of us with this tack and equipment and stuff? Is there any special thing you want to cover as we wrap up here?
No, I mean, I think that the biggest thing that I hear is people are always worried about, what do I buy? What brand do I buy? There are so many good manufacturers, and I think the key thing is to buy what fits, what suits you best, what suits your horse best, what suits your ride best. I think that's really the key. Is, people come and say, well, what's the best saddle? Well, believe it or not, there's a lot of great manufacturers today. So the key is to find what really fits you and fits your horse.
And do we miss like Jimmy's bridles and those guys that were such specialty guys at making this equipment that I don't think we really have those anymore? Is going to very good production on the bridles and the equipment. Do we miss the individual bridle maker?
For sure. I get those occasionally, and I'll get a 21st century or a new cavalry bridles that were really beautifully made. And don't get me wrong, you see that same sort of quality now from a lot of the bigger manufacturers. But yeah, we don't see those sort of small, individually run businesses anymore.
Great. All right, Nick, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. We do have a phone number if people want to text questions, and we'll get that scroll up here where we can have that happening. Thank you. I appreciate it. Welcome to the world of tack repair. I know you've gotten crazy busy, and people that are out of the area that see this, that want to send tack and equipment for repair, they take mail-ins and they get it repaired and get it right back to you quickly. So go to their website. It's Nick, what is your website? Give us that information real quick.
It's www.pacificsaddlery.com.
And it's that simple, and they can take care of all your needs on this tack repair and what you need. It's been fun talking to you, and I'm sure we'll circle back around in not too long because we'll have more specific questions.
Thank you so much, Kathy. See you soon.
Thank you so much. Over and out.